The first 5 episodes in this series, what quantum science taught us about being human, introduced the basic quantum concepts that the human body is in essence a quantum system that emits and absorbs energy waves, the means by which everything communicates with everything else. We saw that our human faculties are manifestations of attributes common to all that exists. Intelligence, for instance, is essentially the ability to connect events matching their energy waves, and our intentions are our human way to follow quantum propensities, also common to all systems. We considered how all quantum systems express motivational feelings by probing repeatedly the quantum sea of probabilities. And I explained that although we have a brain, we are not the brain. We have intelligence because through the course of evolution we managed to download an intelligent brain from potential probabilities. The time has now come to start introducing one of the heavy weights of quantum principles, how with our thoughts we journey into the quantum world of probabilities to shop for the means to realize our goals and ambitions. Quantum scientists described this process as the collapse of the wave function. This is what I will be talking about in this episode. Look at your surroundings, the walls around you, the seat where you are sitting, the clothes that you are wearing, people around you, the prophet said. There's no question that your environment is real. What you may not be aware of, though, is that there exist other realities alongside these objects, realities which were not real for you. These other worlds, or dimensions if you like, contain copies of what you see. Some are nearly identical, while others are very different, but they're hidden, invisible to your senses. To justify the results of their equations, quantum scientists had to come up with an inevitable conclusion. Reality is not equivalent to existence, in the sense that we only perceive as real a very small amount of what really exists in potentiality. Fred Alan Wolf, an influential American theoretical physicist, said that what we perceive as real is just a unique copy of what in effect exists in countless forms and states in other dimensions. To explain this mechanism, scientists looked into the behavior of particles such as an electron, perhaps not realizing the fundamental repercussions that their research would have in the normal everyday behavior of men and women. It all started with an intriguing anomaly. Why did an electron not fall into the nucleus of the atom, attracted by its own atomic forces? Wouldn't that be gravitational forces, just like the force that makes planets revolve around the sun? Martin asked. No, the prophet answered. What keeps an electron circulating around the nucleus could not be explained in terms of gravity. Another explanation was needed, and it came through unconventional reasoning. The explanation, which has since become the accepted view, was that the electron existed not as a particle, but as a cloud surrounding the nucleus. It was not one, but a virtually infinite number of copies of the same electron, which when taken together formed a fog around the nucleus, not unlike how a foggy image appears on the screen if a single spot of light is projected a large number of times randomly and simultaneously. Scientists were now challenged by what explanations they could offer to explain these results. Particularly challenging was how to explain why we can only perceive one of the potential copies and not the others. And since from the quantum perspective a human body is essentially a quantum system not different to an electron, a person must also exist in multiple copies simultaneously. In 1957, the American physicist Hugo Rodriguez proposed that we must exist in multiple universes, each one with its own history, that is, with a fixed past and future. In some of these copies, you are rich, famous, and healthy, whereas in other copies, you are the opposite. So, how do we bring one of these copies into our reality? In quantum terminology, this is the collapse of the wave function. A wave function is a mathematical description of the quantum state of a system. Things exist in potential copies or probabilities, and we bring this probability into the real existence when we observe it. The act of observation collapses the wave function of what we observe. That is, it transforms the object from being a probability to being a real object that we can sense in physical form. You and everything around you exist in many different potential copies, but these copies are not real for you. They only become real when you actually connect with them through an act of observation, that is, when you think of them. Your reality then cannot be conceptualized as a single unfolding history, but as a sequence of completely independent pictures, each one with its own past and future, and where all possible outcomes have a chance to be realized. The person you are today is just a copy amongst a great number of other copies that exist as probabilities in other dimensions or other universes. So, how do I bring one copy of me into being, and why one particular copy? I would much rather bring one where I am rich and famous, Martin asked lightheartedly. Here is where the distinction between reality and existence count, the prophet went on. Let's return momentarily to the example of the electron existing as a cloud. Each position of the electron is located in a separate universe, a different dimension if you prefer, and all these universes overlap, creating the cloud. If undisturbed, that is, if not observed, this cloud gives the atom a stable state with minimum energy, normally referred to as ground state. In a ground state, it is impossible to define the location of any of the components because they are all manifesting as probabilities and simultaneously. You as a person are subject to the same mechanism. If undisturbed, that is, not observed, you exist as probabilities in many forms and states in countless universes. This means that all your copies are in a stable state, which you do not perceive. But when you think, your thought changes the state of your body, and this change is an act of observation that disturbs the state of whatever is it that you are thinking about. The result is that what you observe observes you in return. It does it with an echo wave, and this disturbs the state of your body as well. It is then that you perceive with your senses the copy of the universe prompted by your thought. Let's see how axiom 12 in the book describes this explanation. A thought is an act of observation. It is a potential decision to achieve something, and if we persist with this thought, we enhance the possibility of collapsing the wave function. Just like a particle needs repeating probing to collapse the wave function, we need perseverance to transform something from the potential sea of probabilities into its real physical form. A persistent observation slows down and freezes the event into the state that is prompted by the observation. At this stage, the connection is consummated, and the observed entity becomes real for the observer. A relationship has been established, and the observer has achieved its goal. In quantum terms, this is referred to as the collapse of the wave function because it causes the functioning of all probable waves which exist in potentiality and simultaneously to collapse into only one. How does this apply to us? Antoinette questioned. We are not particles. The mechanism of establishing connections and attaining intended goals is exactly the same for you as it is for particles, and the Zeno effect applies to you as it does to every quantum system. As humans, you have a brain that generates thoughts. Your way to freeze opportunities is by making proper use of your thoughts. The more you think about a particular outcome, the more you influence this particular potential outcome, and the more you increase the possibilities of realizing this intention. As you can see, thoughts are very important. The more we think about a particular event, the more these thoughts become an intention, and the more we increase the possibility that this event will be our next reality. It is a simple yet profound concept. By keeping a thought in mind, we contribute to the realization of what we think, because this is our way of probing the world of possibilities for potential options. If I persist in keeping a particular thought in my mind, I am contributing to the realization of what I think. Correct? Antoinette said. That's right, the prophet answered. The thoughts that you entertain are your ways of probing for potential options, and they are also your ways of observing and thus bringing into your reality the desired goals. Assume that you would like to earn a higher income. By merely keeping this thought in your mind persistently, you are increasing the possibility of succeeding because you are fostering the right connections and the events responsible for bringing this goal into fruition. But if instead of maintaining thoughts about desirable events, I think of misfortunes or about negative events, then this is what I would attract, right? Antoinette asserted. Precisely. You harvest what you sow, and if you dwell on problems or misfortunes, then what you probe for and connect with are these undesirable events, unwittingly bringing them into your life. In previous episodes, I introduced the quantum concepts of how everything that exists connects with everything else by emitting and absorbing matching energy. Human faculties such as intelligence, perseverance, and intentions are manifestations of the ability of all quantum systems to connect external events having propensities and probe the quantum world of probabilities. In this episode, I focused on explaining one of the most profound of all quantum principles, the collapse of the wave function, how we shop for potential events. I explained that reality is not equivalent to existence. What exists in the real physical world is only a minute part of what resides in potentiality in the invisible quantum sea of probabilities, where everything possible can be assembled. Just like an electron exists as an invisible fog around the nucleus, we exist as potential copies of ourselves in different states. We bring some of these potential events into the real physical world when we observe them. The act of observation collapses the wave function of these events, slowing them down to below the speed of light, that is, freezing them into the state that matches the energy waves that we emit, which carry our intentions. If undisturbed, all different copies of us are in a stable state simultaneously in the timeless world of possibilities. When thinking persistently about something, these thoughts, transformed into intrinsic intentions, are acts of observation disturbing these copies and collapsing the wave function of the copy that best matches the energy waves that we discharge. Our thoughts are then very powerful because they are responsible for what we willingly or unwittingly download from the quantum world of potentialities. The more we think with intent about a particular event, the more these thoughts become an intention, and the more we increase the possibility that this event will be our next reality. By fostering the thinking habit of dwelling on productive and beneficial thoughts while avoiding or eradicating counterproductive and negative thoughts, we enhance our chances of achieving our ambitions and develop a more pleasant lifestyle. In the next episode, I will be addressing what is perhaps the most controversial and least understood, yet crucial, of all quantum factors, the notion of time. Quantum science taught us that we can slow time only up to a certain point. Then it ceases to exist. Scientists call this the Planck constant. So what happens when time stops? We enter the unknown, where things move so fast that they only exist in potentiality. Many scientists believe that the arrow of time is really an illusion, although a very stubborn one, and that it is the present that generates the past rather than the other way around. I will be explaining why this is the case and how we actually create our memories from present experiences. Believe me when I say, this is an episode that you don't want to miss.